The lady's screaming, call the police, and we cannot hear. They will not open the door. The lady seems very, very distressed.
Let's call them crimes of passion. The sort of crimes where true love turns into obsession, betrayal, and revenge.
She knew that he had her in her clutches, and every threat that he had ever made was about to be realised.
So often there's a thin line between the one you love and the one you murder.
I don't believe that he murdered her for me. He killed for himself.
Now, the case files that tell the true stories. I guess there's probably no simple answer to this question, but how does somebody go from passionately loving someone one minute to murdering them the next?
I think it's a progression of a series of sad, small steps. It's not necessarily swift, it's a series of decisions.
All right, let's take a look back at one of the cases. Sadly, there's plenty we could choose from, but this one, the Paul Mulverill case, is very interesting because we get to hear from the killer himself, I guess, in pretty good detail.
Looking back at it now, once Rachelle grabbed that knife, it was never going to be a good result for one of us. I want people to see this video message to understand that I'm telling the truth as to what happened that night. You people that know me know that there's no way in the world I could punch a woman in the face, let alone stab her with a knife. It's just not my go. It's never been in me, it never will be in me.
So it is a confession of sorts. Paul Mulverill, he stabbed his former lover, Rachelle Yeo, to death, but he wants us to believe somehow it's her own fault.
She slapped me, I pushed her, and that's when she went for the knife.
Blaming the victim is not unusual. There's an attempt to offset responsibility, push the responsibility onto the victim, but there's also an attempt to deceive.
When she came at me with that really large global chef knife, you know, at first, in the first moment, I didn't think, you know, that she would use it on me. But after she slashed me and caught me on the palm of the hand, and then slashed at me a second time, and I knew that I was in a lot of trouble because I had nothing to defend myself.
So Mulverill recorded this I'm Innocent video about 2 days before the jury retired to consider their verdict. He's all over the place, sometimes wallowing in self-pity.
My life's been destroyed.
And at other times just seething with anger.
And I think it's disgusting the way you've carried on and spread rumours.
At every turn, though, this is a captivating insight into the mind of a killer.
The reason I'm doing this video is just in case I get the verdict that we're not expecting and I go to prison next week.
OK, let's backtrack a bit. It's July 16th, 2012, and Rachelle Yeo was found dead in her apartment in Sydney's Northern Beaches. She's been stabbed so savagely that she's lost virtually all the blood in her body. And who should be caught the very next day trying to flee the state but Paul Mulverill? Paul's supremely confident of his ability to spin a good yarn.
As long as when I get found not guilty, you tell the true story.
But frankly, his entire life has been a carefully crafted lie.
Right footer. Straight to Paul Mulverill inside his quarter.
Mulverill just shrugging it off. Strong under pressure, safe under pressure.
It all started off promisingly enough, though.
Paul Mulverill now, a tremendous chance here.
He was just 18 and the golden boy of Australian rugby.
Mulverill round the corner. Hits it well, is it there? It's there.
And when Paul met his future wife, Teresa, well, he seemed to have it all. They've been married for 16 years and have raised 3 daughters.
Mate, I'm a terrible cook. That's why I'm married. My wife does all the cooking, so I've got to check the recipes.
On the surface, Paul seems like an all-round good bloke. A pretty successful investor who made a fortune in property on the Gold Coast. He even wrote his own cookbook for the average Aussie male.
It's idiot-proof, and it is a good idiot's guide to cooking. You're dead right.
But as journalist Liz Hayes found out, behind that cheeky laugh was a domineering husband and father with a very short fuse.
Paul controlled everything in our house. He controlled the money, he controlled what we did, he controlled where we went on holidays, and our house was very, it was like walking on eggshells all the time when Paul was home.
Were you ever frightened of him?
I was not frightened, but I just did what he wanted, so...
And if you hadn't?
Well, I didn't, because I didn't want to upset him. So if I didn't do something he wanted me to do, he would accuse me of things.
Like what?
Say, oh, well, you must, say if he wanted to go to the bedroom or something, and I'd say no, he would say, oh, you're having an affair, or, just out of the blue.
But it wasn't Teresa who was having the affairs. Around about this time, Paul was working for a pharmaceutical company, and he was on the road a lot, leaving the kids and his wife alone in their Gold Coast home.
Do you feel that this is someone you just never knew?
Yeah, absolutely. He's had a totally different life aside from what we thought we had. I now know that in the house he was dad and he was my husband, and weekends he was husband and dad, but the minute he walked out the door for work, he was a totally different person.
In December 2010, Paul Mulverill began the affair that would destroy his family and, in the end, claim the life of the woman he said he loved. Let's have a look at their relationship, because Rachelle Yeoh was 31, she was 13 years younger than Paul, and she was engaged to another man.
Well, affairs aren't necessarily uncommon, but not many affairs end so tragically. It's a situation where a middle-aged man, in this case, seeks perhaps thrill, excitement outside of the family unit. That creates a dynamic of subterfuge, of deception, where he has a lot to lose if discovered.
And what do you think that Mulverill had to offer this young woman who was already engaged to someone else?
Levels of attraction, levels of excitement, levels of intrigue associated with the older man, the younger woman. There's a particular dynamic that perhaps makes this interesting for both parties.
How did you find out about the affair?
The children were eating their dinner and one of my daughters picked up his phone and was just hitting the numbers. And she said, Mum, I was standing opposite her, and she said, Mummy, I've cracked Daddy's phone, I unlocked it. I thought, oh my God, I'd never snooped on his phone before. So the first message that popped up was from Rachelle, and it was a very explicit text message.
Your heart must have sunk.
It was the worst feeling in the world. Like I was shaking and I thought I was going to be sick, and I just took photos with my iPhone of all the messages. And then he came home about 4 o'clock from work and I had laid all the photos of the text messages out. He walked straight past and just went, I'm busted.
That's all?
That's all. That's all. I'm busted.
Paul promised to end the affair with Rachelle, but in the end, he just couldn't help himself and he continued to pursue her. Eventually, it was Rachelle who said enough is enough, and she moved 900 kilometres south to Sydney.
I think he was obsessed with Rachelle, but at the same time, he didn't want to lose anything he had at home either.
Is it true that he had come to the bedroom and said, I want us to start sharing our bed again, and then put a pillow over your face?
Yes, and I was going, Paul, pushing it off. He goes, no, don't worry, it's not you, it's her. She's going to get it. It was from that second on, though, that I did not feel safe in my house.
When Paul, that particular evening, puts a pillow over Teresa's head and says, oh, it's not you, it's her, you can see the crescendo building. Why couldn't he just walk away and leave it? He was just too obsessed.
There's no doubt that Paul Mulverill was a stalker.
Look, no doubt at all. And you can see that from text messages, phone calls. His marriage is in tatters. His affair with Rachelle is finished, and he's looking around him. He's losing his $2 million estate, his work, and so forth and so on. So he is a very, very bitter man.
By now, Mulverill's obsession with Rachelle turned to cold rage. He wants to see her again, and he begins hunting for her new address in Sydney. He scours the internet for clues about her friends, family, any hint to her whereabouts. He even searched for flats in the price range she might have rented. He was on a mission. And then he discovers she's moved on and seeing another man. Well, from that moment on, Mulverill's behaviour becomes increasingly disturbed.
He did say to me on several occasions that she's going to pay for it, she's ruined my life, and he blamed her a lot for what happened. He did say she shouldn't have texted me on a Friday night and then you would never have found it.
At home one afternoon, Teresa starts snooping around in Paul's travel bag. Of all things, she finds a white plastic chain and a sales tag for a hoodie she's never seen.
So I saw the ticket, but there was no hoodie in there. So if it wasn't in there, it had to be in the wash, and it wasn't in the wash. So that's why I thought that was really bizarre.
And the white chain?
I did see that, but I didn't think anything of that at the time because, to me, it was just another piece of rubbish that he had in his bag.
Everything came to a head on July 16th, 2012, the day Paul Mulverill will kill Rachelle Yeoh. He tells his wife, Teresa, he's going to Melbourne on business. But instead, he flies straight to Sydney and checks himself into a hotel. Later that night, he heads out on his deadly mission. But first, he wedges the door to his room open to avoid an electronic record of him leaving. Wearing his new hoodie, he leaves the hotel through the rear fire door. Now, he's even parked his car out on the street so he doesn't have to use the key card in the car park gate.
CCTV footage can be accessed from a variety of locations. It allows investigators to piece together movements in a way that they could never have done historically. It starts to construct the behaviour, it starts to construct time, so police can tie together where he was at a particular moment, what he was doing, and that speaks to frame of mind, it speaks to a state of mind.
And police in the end are in no doubt that they're dealing with a case of cold-blooded murder. But listen to the killer himself try to talk his way out of murder.
Well, I pleaded with her to let go of the knife, and I asked her 10 times to let go of that knife, and she just wouldn't let it go.
That's the first lie. In his 22-minute video, he lies so often it's possible he doesn't even really know where the truth begins.
I love you very much. I shouldn't have been there that night. I went down to Sydney on the Monday. I had no idea what was going to unfold because I didn't have any plans in particular to see Rachelle. I didn't have her address.
If he didn't have plans to see Rachelle that night, he certainly went to elaborate efforts to build an alibi that he never left his hotel room.
Obviously, the decision to go around there that night is going to haunt me for the rest of my life. But I did go around there, and she did let me in the unit.
There's another lie.
Oh, no, please. I think you should leave.
And now, the forensic evidence was really starting to back up.
No, you scared me, please.
Listen, I just want to talk.
Rachelle was stabbed in the neck, a wound that in itself would probably have been fatal. But in Mulverill's version of events, it was Rachelle who grabbed the knife, then somehow accidentally stabbed herself in the struggle.
I was using her as a leverage, so she was holding my hand like that, and I was pushing down against her hand as leverage to push myself up. and all of a sudden she just gave way and it dropped. And I'll never forget, even though it happened in an absolute split second, I just never forget her she just turned her neck away like that, and the angle of the knife just went straight into her neck, and all I can remember is the blood just started pouring out of her neck.
Please, somebody help me. Can you call the police, please? Please call the police.
The TV was on and I just heard this loud scream. It was a female scream. I heard a lot of glass breaking, screaming, struggling, furniture moving, and a male voice said, it's okay, everything's fine.
Please call the police.
No, it's okay, okay? Everything's okay.
And that's when she screamed out. She said, call the police, he won't let me open the door.
Okay, is that your friend knocking on the door, trying to get the door open? Just all of the neighbours are in the stairwell. We can all hear everything.
The lady's screaming, call the police, and we cannot, they will not open the door.
Okay, so you're not sure that this is...
No, but the lady seems very, very distressed, very distressed.
The medical and forensic evidence shows Rachelle was stabbed deeply in the chest. But on Mulverill's account, it was simply another tragic accident.
We both crashed to the ground, as I explained in court, and it was just such an awkward position, awkward fall, and the knife hit her in the side. And the thing was that neither of us really knew the extent of that injury.
It was a knife just like this one, a global knife, and one of the stab wounds was 18 centimetres deep, and we're supposed to believe that that's some kind of accident.
It's horrific, and multiple stab wounds. In the Australian context, knives are used quite frequently in murders because we have such stringent gun control measures.
Is a knife used as a weapon in cases where a lot of passion is involved in relationships in particular?
Knives are ubiquitous. They're found in every home, so they're on hand, and often the situations where violence erupts, knives are close to hand.
She looked at me and I looked at her, and we didn't even say anything. Nothing was said. We both knew that it was a really, really serious injury. The blood was pouring out. I sort of got up, she got to her knees, and I just grabbed her hand and I said, Rachelle, hold on to it. Just put a hand on her neck, and I just said, hold on to it. And I just absolutely was freaking out.
We'll never know if Rachelle could have been saved by immediate first aid, because her ex-lover simply jumped over the balcony and left her there to die.
I don't even know to this day why I left. I just couldn't be there. I was scared, I panicked. I just looked at the balcony door, went and opened it, jumped over the balcony and left.
Paul Mulverill says he panicked, but he still had enough presence of mind to head to his hotel and try to get back in through the fire door that he'd left open. But unfortunately for him, it's locked, so he has to enter through the lobby. He's already stashed his blood-stained hoodie and shoes. And it's later that night that he leaves the hotel again through the fire door, this time his face hidden behind a bag. His blood-stained clothes and runners and the murder weapon will never be found. When he's asked later, he'll say he can't remember where he's dumped them.
When did you hear from him?
About 10:30 that night, he gave me a call and he just said, she's gone. And I said, what are you talking about, Paul? What are you talking about? And he said, Rachelle, she's gone.
What do you think he meant by she's gone?
What I thought he meant that second was she's dead.
He doesn't seem to be showing any signs of panic, though there is every indication that he's trying to escape. He drives to Sydney Airport and books a flight to Brisbane. And he even hits the Qantas Club breakfast buffet. Escaping justice must be hungry work.
We begin in Sydney, where a manhunt is underway after a woman was found dead inside a unit.
By mid-morning, Rachelle Yeo's murder is all over the media, and knowing police are on the lookout for him, he decides not to catch the flight. he leaves the airport and heads for the nearest car hire counter.
The body tells you a story. That's planning, that's not panic. It's calculated.
He then drives 2.5 hours north to Newcastle. He uses a mate's credit card details to book a flight to Brisbane under a different name. Again, CCTV cameras track his movements, this time in Newcastle Airport, where he repeatedly paces in and out of the terminal. He probably thinks he's in the clear. But when he lands in Brisbane, his luck runs out. The police are waiting.
I was going home. I assumed the police would probably be there because I knew they were looking for a 44-year-old man. But I just wanted to get home and see Teresa and the kids. Even if I was to be arrested at home, I'd at least see them and let them know what happened.
When detectives came to see Teresa after the murder, she told them about finding the tag for the hoodie in Paul's bag. But she didn't mention the white plastic chain that was later discovered at the crime scene, covered in Rachelle's blood.
You lied to the police about the chain?
Yeah.
And
I had a phone call with Paul the morning that I was making that statement, and I'd said they're going to ask me about the chain. What should I say? And he said, look, it would be really nice if you just said you haven't seen it.
And did you ask him why?
I didn't really ask him why, but I knew he just didn't want that part to come out.
Paul Mulverill was eventually charged with the murder of Rachelle Yeoh. It took the jury less than 2 hours to find him guilty. But for his wife, Teresa, it's going to take a lot longer.
Do you believe Paul murdered Rachelle?
He went there to intimidate her, to try and convince her. Well, this is what I think, but looking at all the evidence now, he obviously had more than just trying to get her to, like him again. I don't know,
Is it hard to say Paul is a murderer?
Absolutely.
You can't say that?
No, I can't say it.
Paul Darren Mulverill, on the charge of murder, I sentence you to a term of imprisonment of 29 years, comprised of a non-parole period of 22 years.
Our legal system, our justice system, if you like, has done its job, and we believe it's done it well.
We'll miss Rachelle, Sarah Yeoh forever, every second of every day.
When it comes to the sentencing in a case like this, what's the stress like on the families involved?
The stress is phenomenal. They're thrust into the limelight under very tragic circumstances. The trial can take a very long time. Details about their daughter in this case can be exposed that are harrowing to listen to. Images will be difficult to watch. Media attention is obviously significant because of the nature of the tragedy. There's tragedy all around.
It is perhaps some small comfort to Rachelle's grieving family that the man who killed their daughter will spend much of the rest of his life behind bars. But for the other family he shattered, his own, his shadow still looms large.
It's scary that you think you know someone and you don't. It's very scary.
Now, as Paul Mulverill was preparing to stab Rachelle Yeoh, just an hour up the road, another married man was embarking on an affair that would also end in murder. So let's be upfront from the start. Toni McHugh is not the first person to fall in love and have a relationship, well, most of us would probably call it an affair, with a married man. And, well, she won't be the last. But leaving her own partner and her children to be involved with Gerard Baden-Clay for 4 years, is without a doubt the worst mistake she has ever made. She'll always be known as the other woman and linked to the murder of Gerard's wife, Allison Baden-Clay.
It is fair to describe you as the mistress, isn't it?
That's how, yes, it is. But I believed that I wasn't that person for Gerard.
What did you believe you were?
I believed that I was in a loving, caring relationship that did have a future.
Even though he was a married man?
Yes, even though he was a married man.
How much did you love him, or how much do you love him?
I loved him very much.
Toni McHugh thought her love affair with Gerard Baden-Clay was the real deal. It was supposed to have a happy ending. Well, history tells a very different story. She's since been the key prosecution witness at Baden-Clay's murder trial and had every intimate detail of her personal life exposed in court, and it wasn't pretty. Now she wants to tell her side of the story.
I don't believe that he murdered her for me. Why I say he did not kill her to be with me was that I loved him already. He didn't need to. He already had me.
So if he wasn't killing for love, what was he killing for?
He killed for himself.
To everyone, the Baden-Clays were a happy family from Brisbane's middle-class western suburbs. Like many couples, Gerard and Allison met at work and fell in love. They married back in 1997 and had 3 beautiful daughters. All was good, and life seemed harmonious and normal. These cases both involve married men having an affair. What is it about that situation that can lead to tragedy like this?
Sort of interesting research around affairs that lead to incidents that result in murder or homicide, where the perpetrators often have no criminal record, they're often successful, they've got families, they've achieved many things in their life.
So in some cases, these men will kill the woman they're having an affair with, and in other cases, kill their partner.
Almost literally discarding the women who have been part of their lives for decades, who have been part of their success, who have helped create the lives that they enjoy.
And arrogant enough, confident enough to think that they'll get away with it.
Scouting is a global organisation which has its core fundamental in doing unto others as you'd have done unto you and leaving the world a better place than you found it.
Gerard's claim to fame was as a great-grandson of Lord Baden-Powell, the founder of the Scouting movement. And you'll see from this promotional video from a few years ago, he clearly enjoyed the attention and the prestige that came with the name. He was a real estate agent, where again, his self-confidence and desire to be the centre of attention was constantly on display. Allison, meanwhile, got on with being a wife, mother, and loyal friend.
What sort of a mum was Allison?
She was a gorgeous, beautiful, caring mum. Absolutely lived to be a mother. Mm-hmm. She adored her girls.
Can you believe she's gone?
No, it's Of course we believe it because it's real, but yeah, for sure, you know, we don't want to believe it. Yeah.
Now, let's go back to 2008, when Gerard first met Toni McHugh. She was a client of his, and soon after, an employee at his real estate office.
How did the affair start?
I admired him as a person. I really... I believed in his integrity, and I guess there was an attraction.
At the time, Toni's 17-year relationship with the father of her children was crumbling. Gerard was the man who provided support and told her similar things about his own marriage to Allison. Destiny was drawing them together.
And that's what he was telling me, that he was in a marriage that wasn't a loving marriage, that he was only there for the children, for the girls.
What did you think your future was?
I just thought it'd be a normal future. I thought it'd be two people that loved each other.
Did you think that you'd get married one day?
He had told me that he would marry me one day.
What did you think of Gerard and Allison's marriage?
Allison did love him, and obviously we would support anything Elle chose to do.
We felt that she was too good for him back in the really early days, and she was, but she was in love.
Love is blind. Yeah.
Eventually, Allison found out about her husband's affair, and in an instant, Toni was dumped and fired.
He basically just said to me, "I need to see you. She knows." And I knew what my fate would be, really.
While he still claimed a commitment to his wife, he was far from a loving husband, which distressed Allison's friends, Helen and Nicole.
He had told her that he didn't love her. I don't know how you actually really recover from that.
Every day there was cruel things being said about what a horrible dinner you've cooked, how lazy, she is to not have cleaned the house, or just degrading, awful comments.
Did Allison ever consider leaving Gerard?
No. That was never an option for Al, never an option. She was always going to fix it, and it was always going to get better.
But barely 2 months later, Gerard was back in touch and up to his old tricks.
We met at a coffee shop. He sat opposite me, held my hand, came into that meeting without his wedding ring on. And he said to me, "I need you to know that I love you and that I am going to be leaving my wife."
That affair had been going for a number of years. The promises that he'd made McHugh that he was going to be with her after the 1st of July. An email back from Gerard only a matter of days before Allison's disappearance, telling McHugh that he loved her on 3 occasions in that one email, with the final sentence, "Leave it to me now."
I think, Robert.
There just weren't enough hours in the day for him to keep up with his own convoluted double life. His real estate business was floundering, and he owed $1 million, most of it to friends. Now, let's go back to April 19th, 2013. Gerard had renewed his affair with Toni McHugh. The turning point in this sordid story came that afternoon when Toni was driving home, and she and Gerard were having one of their regular phone chats. But this time, it quickly became heated when Gerard revealed that Toni and Allison would come face to face at a real estate conference the next day.
He was telling me that, that he most certainly didn't love his wife and that he still intended to leave his wife. But I'm not convinced. I don't know what you are doing to ensure that we have a relationship.
So did you give him an ultimatum of any sort?
I said to him, "You have to talk to me about how things are going to change." And he said, "Things are changing."
Now, Gerard Baden-Clay's version of the events of that night is that after the kids were put to bed, Allison started quizzing him about his affair with Toni because their marriage counsellor had suggested that it could be a good way to clear the air. But Gerard says after a while he had had enough and went to bed. Now, he claims that when he woke up that day, Allison was gone. Now, it's 7:15. He's a very calm man, and he calls 000.
Police emergency, what's your location?
Good morning, Brookfield. My wife isn't home. I don't know where she is.
What's going through the mind of a killer in this situation?
One suspects a lot is going through his mind. How do you craft a story that is robust enough to withstand interrogation by the police?
And how easy is it to fool a homicide detective?
They've heard a lot of stories, a lot of excuse-making from a number of people over many years. They're not going to be fooled easily.
Especially from a man with scratch marks on his face.
Indeed.
After he made his emergency call to report his wife missing, the operator arranged for police to go to their home. But when the first officer saw Gerard, he called in his superior. Sergeant Jackson was immediately suspicious.
The officer that arrived at the scene said that the person on the scene had large scratches to his face. The officer said that Baden-Clay had told him that he'd done it shaving, and the officer had said to me that it didn't look like shaving scratches. I think most men who shave for 20 plus years know what a shaving scratch looks like, and they were definitely fingernail scratches.
What was your gut instinct telling you?
Look, my gut instinct said there was something wrong. We initially thought it was probably domestic violence. To what extent, we didn't know.
Was he agitated at all?
He wasn't agitated, he was just very difficult to get answers out of.
Gerard had other physical injuries as well. He claimed to have cut his hand changing a light bulb the day before. And this is strange. He claimed he'd been attacked by a caterpillar, which had somehow left large red scratch marks on his chest. Andrew Jackson acted quickly and decisively, not only recording his conversation,
I don't want anyone leaving at this stage.
but also declaring the house a crime scene and calling in the help of every available police officer in the area. At one stage, there were more than 80 of them there to get a search going. As Gerard's story was unravelling, Superintendent Mark Ainsworth's team quickly identified even more strange behaviour. Even before he made the call to police to report his wife missing, he chose to Google very specific, and you'd have to say suspicious, legal definitions.
You've got a man perceiving to all and sundry that he was very concerned about where Allison was, and he's doing a check on the right to silence. Does that ring true to anyone? Would a normal person do that in those circumstances? I suggest the answer would be no.
What was your reaction when you heard Allison was missing?
Oh, devastated, absolutely. Concerned. I didn't dislike Allison. I never ever wanted harm or... I know, I didn't intentionally go out to hurt Allison or her family.
Did you want to say anything this morning?
Good morning.
No.
All I really want to say is that I'm trying to look after my children at the moment. They've got 3 young girls, and we really trust that the police are doing everything they can to find my wife, and we just hope that she'll come home soon. And I need to go now to an appointment, but...
The police were doing everything they could to find Allison, but Gerard, he wasn't. He didn't even bother to help in the search at all.
Cannot believe that somebody who loves their wife so much and wants her safe return wasn't here.
This search area, it was vast, the terrain difficult. Police were also looking for Allison's mobile phone in the hope it was with her. Unfortunately for him, it was Sharky's job to call it, but he only ever got her message bank.
It kept ringing, and then I heard her voice for the first time, and it was just Allison saying who she was, and she couldn't take the call, and she would get back to us.
To hear the voice of this woman, I'd imagine, she would feel so close. You're hearing her voice, and yet you can't find her. I mean, what's that feeling like?
Can we stop?
While the search teams were looking for Allison, the scientific teams were looking for clues back at the Baden-Clay home. Acting Inspector Ewan Taylor collected a mountain of photographic and scientific samples. Crucially, his team didn't find any blood on the razor blade Gerard claimed had cut up his face, but they did find it elsewhere.
During those first initial days, I was contacted by one of our scientific major crime unit officers who advised that he had found a stain in the Captiva. He described the stain to me as a contact smear with drips down to the floor of the vehicle.
Police also found a strand of hair in the back of the car, and they soon confirmed the hair and the blood belonged to Allison. Now they just had to find her. It was only a matter of time, and on the 11th day after her disappearance, the search was over. Allison's badly decomposed body was found by a canoeist at a creek about 13 kilometres from her home. It was the worst day for Sharky, who had to tell Allison's mum and dad.
It was the hardest call I ever made in my life, and ever will, I think. She was the girl next door. She was everybody's daughter, sister, mother.
And get this, even before she was formally identified by dental records, Gerard was making calls to claim his wife's insurance policies.
From our investigations, he owed in the vicinity of $1 million. The life insurance policy that Allison had out, again, was in the vicinity of $1 million. So taking the policy, claiming the money for the policy, would certainly erase most of his debts that he had attracted. He lived a life of deception, and it was all about Gerard.
Gerard can dispute it as much as he likes, but police believe the scratch marks that Allison left on him tell the real story, that she probably fought tooth and nail for her life as he most likely smothered her.
How terrifying do you think those last moments were for Allison?
I can only imagine they would have been extremely terrifying. You only got to look at the scratches on the side of his face.
She was fighting for her life. Yeah. And I'm sort of, it sounds weird, but I'm really proud of her because she fought to the end, and that is not her. I mean, she is so gentle and soft and, just so beautiful. But for her, she was literally fighting for her life. And I would sit there during the trial and I would sort of feel so grateful to her that she had done that, and I would look at him in the trial thinking, he would be hating that. It was like, she did what she had to do. Yeah.
There was more great detective work to come. When police found Allison's body, they also found some small leaves knotted in her hair.
The material was examined under a microscope, of course, and then identified it, comparing it with known samples here in the collection.
He established there were 6 different types of plants. But how's this? He could only find 2 of the species at the creek location, but all 6 in the Baden-Clay backyard. Putting the pieces together, Police believed after he killed her, Gerard dragged Allison across the back patio before lifting her into the car. After a 2-month investigation, on the 13th of June 2012, police finally had enough evidence to arrest 41-year-old Gerard Robert Baden-Clay and charge him with the murder of his 43-year-old wife, Allison.
Do you have any doubt that you've got the right man?
No doubt whatsoever. I formed the clear view that Gerard Baden-Clay is a person I wouldn't trust to take my dog for a walk.
The court was told Gerard had affairs with other women, even cheating on Toni McHugh, his mistress. But he boldly claimed he had no reason to leave his marriage because all his affairs, even the much longer 4-year relationship with Toni, were meaningless.
How much contempt do you have for this man?
I think he's probably one of the lowest forms of life you could ever meet. He's got a lot to answer to his children for as they grow up.
It's not a normal, there's nothing normal about this. And I don't understand it as an adult. And I don't know how they would understand it. You know, I feel guilty so many times because my grief as a friend is enormous. And I feel guilty because my grief is a drop in the ocean compared to theirs. And I can't process it.
So how can they?
No.
I want this man to never, ever, ever enter my life ever again.
For the rest of his life, Gerard Baden-Clay will live with the consequences of the death of his wife, Allison. The woman he murdered.
Every homicide is tragic, but it's really hard to understand how in these cases it started as love and it's ended up as, I don't know, hate or murder. What's the motivation? How does it switch?
Decisions are made in the context of complex lives, and I don't think that there is necessarily sort of a loved shift to hate. I think they're confusing emotions that trap people in decisions. So I think it's important to try and understand the whole experience and not look for a moment, not look for a tipping point.
54-year-old Jane Ashton always looked out for her twin sister Julie.
Hope you like the flowers, sis.
But she couldn't protect her from the man her sister really should have trusted most, her husband of 23 years, James Ramage.
I'm so sorry.
Julie eventually left Ramage, and weeks later, he killed her.
I guess what adds to the torment in a case like this is that the lawyers for Ramage used this law that existed at the time of the provocation defence. Essentially, it means that he blamed his wife, Julie, for her own death.
Provocation is a partial defence to murder. It historically was introduced at a time where being found guilty of murder would result in death penalty. So it was an attempt to distinguish between crimes of passion, an offence in the moment, rage, to those that are well thought through, that are planned.
It's difficult, though, for the family of the victim, isn't it, to think that somehow they asked for it?
Absolutely.
They all say that in some way women belong to men and that women need to toe the line. And if they don't toe the line, we as a society says, well, in fact, they asked to be killed.
Jane and her sister enjoyed a safe and happy childhood. Girlish dreams of marriage and family came early for Julie. She was still at school when she met James and fell in love. They married and had 2 children. But Jane never really liked the man her twin chose to spend her life with.
He was very controlling, he was bullying. I found him personally intimidating. He'd broken her nose and he'd broken her arm.
How do you feel about James Ramage now?
I hate his guts.
Ramage's violence towards his wife was to take a lethal turn on the 21st of July 2003. It was just 6 weeks after Julie had finally worked up the courage to leave him. James lured her to the house to check on renovations.
Julie never thought she was going to be on her own in the house with him. She thought the builder was going to be there. He got rid of the builder. You know, he was trying to get it back, trying to fix things.
He bashed Julie. He strangled her and he shoved her body in the boot of his Jag. He then showered and he calmly cleaned the house and even called a few friends to say that he'd been tied up all afternoon. Later, he drove for more than an hour out of town to isolated bushland, where he buried his wife in a shallow grave.
She's in some muddy hole while he's in a pub having a glass of wine.
Look at this grainy CCTV footage. It shows him meeting with his lawyers for more than 3 hours at the local pub. At the very same time, Julie's family were desperately searching for her.
He calls his lawyer. Cool as a cucumber.
Finally, just before midnight, Ramage's lawyers deliver him to police.
She sort of said that sex with me repulses her.
Now, in his police interview, he says Julie told him she was sexually repulsed by him, so he killed her.
And that's where I lost it.
It wasn't his fault, he said. Julie provoked him.
Mr. Ramage, just wondering if I can ask you some questions, please, about the killing of your wife. You bashed and strangled Julie, then buried her in a shallow grave. Do you think it's fair that you're now a free man?
You're disgusting.
Do you feel that you got away with murder?
Allison Langdon?
Do you feel safe with this man? The judge said he held great concern for any future partners of Mr. Ramage.
Come on.
How did she provoke you?
Why can't you leave him alone?
Do you think it's fair that you only spent 8 years in jail? That your children no longer have a mother? Do you think that's fair, Mr. Ramage?
Now, provocation was also the main defence used by this man, Christopher Cullen. He slaughtered his wife Comrie, and he also claimed that she provoked him by constantly taunting him about their sex life. Look closely. These are the chilling final images of Comrie Cullen. That's her in the middle, the mother of 3 sitting uncomfortably next to her estranged husband, Christopher Cullen, in court in a dispute regarding damage to his car. She's about to be kidnapped, bashed and shoved in the boot of his car alive. They're images that still haunt her good friend Renee Jamar.
The hopelessness of thinking what menial, trivial things I was doing over the course of those hours while Comrie was in a boot, while Comrie was terrified, while she was trying to think of how she could get away from him because she knew that he had her in her clutches and every threat that he had ever made was about to be realised.
An hour later, cameras picked up Cullen at his favourite fishing store, casually browsing for knives, a knife sharpener and a change of shirt. Plain and simple. He was planning his wife's murder.
He walks around the store and there is no difference between him and any other customer in that store, except he's got his bleeding and injured wife in the boot of the car he just parked in the car park. It's absolutely horrific because of... there's nothing remarkable about it.
Christopher? Again, I'm Detective Sydney Constable McNally from Miranda Detectives. Do you understand that?
In isolated mangroves, he stabbed his wife 18 times. And if you can believe this, he even bashed and stabbed himself to make it look like there'd been a mighty struggle.
She stabbed you and you stabbed her? Yeah.
But it was all a lie. And it should have been an open and shut murder case. Instead, for a while, he tried to use the defence of provocation.
You've been arrested for the murder of Victoria Comrie Cullen. Did you commit that act?
No comment.
Even though Comrie had been a victim of shocking domestic violence for many years, in court he was trying to paint his wife as a lying, drunken, scarlet woman.
I won't have those lies about her maid and no one stand up and tell those 3 children your mother was not a drunk. Your mother didn't stay out and leave you home alone in your beds. That was not your mother. She was an exceptional mother.
So these were men who, at their core, were afraid of losing their place.
And a strong sense of entitlement, a strong sense of self-importance, perhaps a strong sense of ego, maintaining their perception amongst their peers, their reputations within peer groups and the like. I think it also talks to masculinity. It tells a story of how tragically women are discarded in the lives of these successful men.
And even though the jury saw through Cullen's lies and convicted him of murder, Jane Ashton was furious that he was able to use the provocation defence at all. The very same defence which James Ramage used to escape his murder charge.
I was horrified. It was history repeating itself. The perpetrator, he becomes the victim. He's the poor man, and she's portrayed as somebody that's out to destroy him, who pulls the rug out from under his feet. And so a provocation trial becomes about her character, not his.